I am live, and now I'm not muted anymore. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, those of you who know me really well know that I love reading, and I love the reference materials of access consciousness, and I love pretty much, oops, sorry to be hiding you, Miss Kitty Cat. I love these tools. I love these tools, and I love the space and the difference and the joy that they give me in my life. And the way that I have a different way of perceiving the world um, with the tools. So I'm extremely grateful for the tools of access because they've changed the way I look at the world. Um, they really, really changed the way I look at the world. So death has been a really interesting companion of late. And of late, that's relative, literally. There are really interesting choices that have been made, regarding death, regarding living, regarding choosing around me the last few years. And it's been really fascinating, especially having the tools of access consciousness in my pocket to be able to explore them, to be able to see them, and to be able to not get swept away. So I was on the weekly reference material call and was listening to my friend, and the call got disconnected. And interestingly, it got disconnected and a message popped in. Usually messages pop into WhatsApp without disconnecting calls that you may be on that are not through WhatsApp, that are just regular calls. But in this case, I recognize that my attention, my energy is required in something different. And there was a message from my cousin's husband in Israel saying that my aunt, my dad's older sister, passed away while she was sleeping in her bed about an hour and a half before he messaged me. And to please break the news as gently as I could to my father. Having these tools, I'm not really sure what breaking the news gently is, because the facts are facts. She did pass away. She's had a period of, I saw her in February, she was doing great. But I think in June, she had a stroke and was recuperating from the stroke. But they said that there's nothing else that they could do for her. Like, she wasn't particularly healing. So they took her away from the I don't even know what you call those places. I just know the word in Hebrew, but it's this place where she was there for essentially recuperate, to learn how to walk again with a walker, and to do more things on her own, to be able to be slightly independent. As soon as they deemed that she can't recuperate, and they sent her to a place, so it was very hospital-like, attached to where she had her assisted living apartment. She stopped desiring to live. And it's really, really, really interesting because it is a lot about desire. It is a lot about choice. And most people don't look at death or dying as something that involves any choice whatsoever. And what I've learned, like I said, it's all relative from the various members of the family who've chosen all sorts of exit strategies. I've really gotten to see what a choice it is, whether you are living, dying, alive, or dead, and the differences between all of those things. So I'm sorry, I know technically on this Zoom we'd be continuing to read, but right now I just wanted to speak to this. So yesterday there was an access facilitator that passed away as well, and on the Be Different, Stay Weird telecall with Dr. Dane, he mentioned it, and he mentioned that there was something written in the reference materials. See those lovely, amazing reference materials from years ago. That was a perspective on death. And years ago, Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, channeled a being named Raz, and that was to contribute to. Raz came in and made it easier to deliver the information that was coming in through other beings, through Gary. And Raz is so cool, and the information that he made Gary aware of, and that Gary no longer channels, but the information that he had received and the perspective that that he has were things that came through. Like if you read, there's a book that's entirely channeled by Raz. I mean, it's Gary there saying, see you, from what I know, as soon as I begin channeling, Raz is, taking over. He's going to take you all sorts of really cool places. And it's a beautiful book, and I've explored it in this group before, and it's the How to Become Money workbook. I love that book. And I'm just going to say the languaging, the wording, the invitation, the under the wording that Raz invites us to a different way to be. A different way to be around money in that case, or a different way to be, actually. I'm sorry, money just barely scratches the surface of what Raz invites us to being in that book, and it's called the How to Become Money workbook. So there's a lot of people that just dismiss it. Oh, it's, that's so odd. What do you mean become money? Or, oh, that's just for people with money problems. No, it is a guide to being, and it's essentially the very first foundation that ever existed on this planet. The foundation class, you could say, that existed on this planet. Like pre having the foundation class, this was what it was. And that's where it came from. And so the words of Raz, they're like a doorway that opens to different possibilities. You can take them at face value, or you can look beneath them, through them, and with them into something different. And so I'd like to read them, and I'd like to talk about some of what's coming up. Probably not just for me, but for other people as well. Raz on death. When do you celebrate death? Do you celebrate it? Do you honor it? And do you see it as the joy of transition? When the tree dies, does the rest of the forest mourn? Or do the worms go, yeah, mealtime? The forest doesn't mourn the passing of a tree. They celebrate the beginning of new life. Death is the transition from the limitation of this lifetime and the defined role they have created here, and the defined reality, the destiny that they have written in stone for themselves. It is the opportunity for them to create something entirely new. Honor the dying and the passing as you honor the birth. There is no difference. One is the other side of the coin, but it is the same coin. It is the same place in which beauty exists. If you will honor the dying instead of mourning it, what you will create is the memory in the person who passes of their life happening with ease in their next life, so that they can choose how to rewrite what they came to accomplish, and they won't have to struggle to know who they are. They won't have to fight to have awareness, and they won't have to sift through the gray matter of their brain to know. Honoring death gives awareness to the being and improves the possibility of knowing in each lifetime. That is the gift you give to spirit when you honor death. Enough for this day. It has been a great and glorious time to speak with you. We congratulate you on all that you accomplished, which is greater than you know. We leave you in love. Good day. I really, 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 really love that. There is such an appreciation in honoring the living, in honoring the dying, and in honoring the choice. See, it's really cool. My aunt was such an amazing lady who never got to live her own life. She was a really amazing lady who just in the last few years, when she was in this um, assisted living place, began to do things that were joyful for her. She lived her entire life serving other people. She never got to explore what it is that she would like, what it is that it means to be herself, what it is that she would actually enjoy being and having and doing. And so her ability to choose when she went to the assisted living place rather than living in her own apartment alone, she was able to go to lectures, she was able to dance, she was able to go to parties. I remember a year ago, prior to all the corona weird stuff, a year ago when we were in Israel, we were there during the celebration of one of the holidays called Purim, and we came to visit her after they'd had a party at the place, and she actually enjoyed herself. She didn't have to just do what other people would do. She actually got to choose and have a good time. Now, I haven't seen the picture yet. Hello, how are you? Thank you. Thank you. I got to hear from my mom that yesterday, when my father and my mom spoke with my aunt, um, she ate well. She didn't have any of the tubes or the other things that were um, attached to her. My mom said she almost looked like she came out of the salon. She was all nicely um, dressed, and she had, on a nice sweater, and because it's getting cool over there, and it was just such a beautiful energy that she had about her. And she said, we thought she was getting better. Well, what if she did get better? What if she was actually choosing to go on her terms and in her way? My father-in-law did the same thing, and I reached out to Gary Douglas, to the founder of Access, because um, this has been this um, honor the dying words of Raz's conversation that are pasted above this live. They're something that I've read and have played with for many years. And so I've had a sense of peace with living or with dying. They're two sides, like he says, of the same coin, or you can shake the same stick. They're a continuum. I'm very well aware that there is no past, there is no future. Although we speak about those things, there is no past in the linear sense that we have. There's no future in the linear sense that we have so kind of entrained to in this reality. There is this spherical, ever shifting, ever changing, ever melting energy of now. And it's as if my aunt knew that this was what she was choosing now, not in a cognitive sense, but her being knew. What if we would begin to honor and celebrate the knowing of others? So my father-in-law chose to end his life in a different way. He chose physician assisted suicide, and he had his 3 kids near. At first, there was this whole sense of, got to talk him out of it that everyone had. He shouldn't be doing this. There's his granddaughters having a bat mitzvah, and different people are, there's different things going on, and we could see him, and he could come here, and he could go, whatever. But the thing is, it wasn't honoring of him. Having these tools allowed my husband and I to have a sense of space, to have a sense of ease, to have a sense of appreciation for him as he was choosing and as he was being. And no one would actually be able to know what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. That's why there's no guru, there's no teacher, there's no one who knows more about what is going to create greater for you than you. Your choosing creates everything around you. And for a doctor or a lawyer, an Indian chief, or a son or a parent or a sister, brother, anyone, to go and impose their will on someone takes away the fluidity of choice for them. How many people do you know who've held on to life forcefully because they may disappoint someone else if they're not there? They may be suffering and struggling with a disease or with something else so that they could be present for someone just a little bit longer because someone has decided they quote unquote need them. What if we actually allowed ourselves to be needless? What if we actually allowed ourselves to be able to lose everything that we've ever thought we were? It sounds perhaps a bit threatening, but what if it isn't? So, okay, there's like 10 million things going in my head right now. My friend Rihanna and I began reading a book yesterday, exploring a book yesterday. I'll put actually, it's on the Facebook event that I think has been shared here. And there's a recording that's up for a few days. You guys can listen to the conversation we had yesterday. It was pretty nifty. But it's called Beyond the Utopian Ideals. How many utopian ideals, how many constructs, how many perspectives do we have that life has to be lived a particular way, that this world has to function in a particular way, or that we have to be functioning in a particular way in order to meet what's ideal, what's, the utopia, what's what we're told that we have to be and do in any particular way. But that's just a perspective. That's just an ideal. And I found it fascinating. I looked up utopia. I didn't ding dong, like, where does that word come from? Thomas More had written a book in the 1500s, Utopia. And utopia means, if you go back to the Greek origin of the two words that were put together to coin that term, means nowhere, a place that doesn't exist. So this idea, this construct of a perfect life and a perfect living doesn't really exist. Now, if you read the book with us, or you join the book club, which we're starting officially next week, and you're invited to, if you'd like, it's $49 this week, and starting election day, wow, what a day to begin, Beyond Utopian Ideals, starting election day, November 3rd, price goes up to $79. But anyway, that's an aside. But look at that. We live through these constructed road posts and signposts of how to live life, of how to function, of how to be in different situations. So the message that I'd gotten from my cousin's husband was actually very poignant. It was really, really interesting. He wrote, with deep sadness and I'm trying to translate the words and it's not as fluid, with deep sadness and with piercing agony, that's the word, agony, we are forced to tell you about the passing of Chana Petzinyash, the beloved Chana Petzinyash, which is so interesting to me, because in that there isn't the honoring of probably the relief that she's feeling, and the relief that my cousin's wife, and probably my cousin's wife, my cousin and her husband, both of them, are feeling, and most likely the other cousin as well, that they don't have this angst of what do we do about our mother who's not in such a great state. There's so much more to birth and dying, kind of like marriage. It's those big choices. When we look at the big choice with a sense of allowance, a sense of awareness of what does this create, we can begin to see. So his words were following the construct of someone dies and we rend the fabric of our clothing and we demonstrate and we feel and we grieve. And yes, that is a process for many. And in this particular case, and in my father-in-law's case, for them, there's a sense of relief, a tremendous relief. My father-in-law so looked forward to that lethal injection. He so looked forward to dying in his sleep. He was terrified of dying, as he thought, without a choice, or in a way that he wouldn't be choosing. My aunt passed away in her sleep. He too, except he was medicated to do it, to stop his heart as he was sleeping. It's fascinating how much fear we have of this great unknown of death. Now, I have two elderly parents. I had to break the news to today. They figured it would be easier or softer coming through me. Funny that. I'm a little more direct. And I woke my dad up when I called him and I said, I'm sorry. Because for him, he does not see that life is spherical, that living is spherical, that there is birthing and dying as a process that continues. He does not see that. For him, we live, we die, we become worm food. There is nothing else. And for me, there cannot not be something else. Life and living and death and dying are two doorways in and out. One of the things that we do in Access, giving people a choice of whether to stay in their body or not, is a process called exit stage left, which is described definitely in a foundation class, and it may be even introduced in a bars class nowadays. It is a process that honors the choosing. Are you currently on the stage of life and living, choosing, living, creating with your choice? Or are you now ready to get off the stage? Are you going to sit in the audience for a while? Or are you going to come and make another walk through, another dance through? And in that brief moment of crossing that stage, it's like this lifetime that you have. The thing is, this lifetime that you have is presented as this construct, this definition, this, I am that we hold on to in this reality. Well, you're not just the I am. You are not just this one reality. You are not just this one person that's showing up right now. That's why I don't say, hi, I'm Rachel Silber. For years, I haven't. I'm not Rachel Silber. I was speaking with someone about redoing a website. Didn't end up going through. But she said to me, how about we do a Rachel Silber website? And I said, I just don't like that. And she said, well, it's kind of the thing that's done. You do websites with your name. And I said, but I'm not that. I'm not. I'm not just Rachel Silber. I'm an infinite being who currently encompasses the body, the family, the choices, the experiences of Rachel Silber. So I could say, hi, my name is, because currently that's how people may identify me. But am I that? No. Am I only that? No. When we clear entities in access classes, or on that foundation class or a talk to the entities class, we ask, who were you before that? And who were you before that? And who were you before that? And who were you before that? Why do we do this? We do this because we are not just one moment in time. We're not one frozen solid ice block of this is it. There is so much more to us than meets the eye. There is so much more to us than the mythology, than the stories, than the fantasies and insanities and all of those constructs that are told about us. We're literally miracles walking. And to believe that we are only this limited perspective of being is not enough. It does not embrace the grandness of the beings that we be, of our ability to create wondrously, to choose phenomenally, to invite the world into something entirely different. Saying that we are only this that we perceive right now when we look in the mirror doesn't honor everything else that we've been and done. And this, what Raz was saying, that if we honor and celebrate the living, and the dying, if we honor and are grateful for the experience that we've had with them, I will never, and I never do, when I see a train, every time I see a train passing, I always think of my aunt. Because when I was a teenager, and I went back to visit Israel. I was visiting, my grandmother was still alive at the time. And I went to visit because we left Israel when I was 10. And so I was visiting my grandmother, and my grandmother didn't do road trips or anything like that. But my aunt and my cousins did. And they took me on a road trip to Haifa, which is a city in the further north of Israel. And as we're driving along, there's a train going the opposite direction. And I'm already like, 15 or something like that. I'm no longer the little kid that my aunt had remembered. And so she told me, wave at tasi shalom l'rakevt, wave at the train, Rachel, wave at the train. And I looked at her like, seriously? You think I'm gonna wave at the train? It was the funniest thing. Somewhere I was frozen in her mind as a little girl who left Israel when she was little, and I kind of froze there. She saw me as an adult as well, but somewhere in there, she would still refer to me as little Ochale. She didn't, I stayed that she had decided upon. You see, it's really interesting because it became this defined role. And I was this little niece that she enjoyed and that she loved. And we do that with people, we stick them in a little role, in a definition, and in an expectation of this is it. But are we truly honoring them and the breadth of who they be if we limit them to only that one expression? Who are they beyond that? I'm sorry I'm not doing a whole lot of clearings here. I'm just not in that space right now. But if anything is coming up for you that's bringing up things in your world or perhaps with your experiences, feel free to destroy and uncreate everything that it's bringing up and everything that's coming up, because we don't tend to look at life and living in the same way through these tools as the constructs of the world are around us. My cousin's husband wrote with deep agony. It isn't agony. I may have tears in my eyes, but they're not of sadness. They're of deep gratitude. Just, I don't know how to express it, but it's an amazing gratitude for life, for living, for this world that we are so lucky to be able to play in. And you know what? Also for treasuring every single moment that we have. Really, if we zoom out, if we expand, and we look back on this very moment, do we have a problem? Is there anything that looks like a problem? Or is it just a little tiny blip? Is our entire presence on this plane, in this particular defined form and in this defined reality, anything more than a blip? That blip is like a note and a harmony, a note that's part of a harmony or a symphony. It is something that contributes to the greater whole. That's where everything in our life and living, to me, is miraculous. Everything we get to contribute, to play with, to be part of, is such a phenomenon if we're willing to receive it. So when I reached out to Gary to ask, what do I do? I mean, the kids were horrified with my father-in-law choosing to end his life, like, quote unquote, he shouldn't be doing this. But we sat and had a conversation. And I said, it's his choice. And the only thing that we can do is actually be grateful for him, for his life, for his living, and for his choosing. And the same thing with my aunt, and the same thing with my mother-in-law. And she chose. It's fascinating to me how people choose. My mother-in-law passed away of ovarian cancer, January 1st, 2012. That big 2012 that everybody said, end of the world as we know it. Perhaps it was the end of the Mayan calendar. And January 1st, every year since, it's been, hey, Happy New Year, Happy Death Day. But it's interesting because this is part of the choices that people make. She was very clear in her way of exiting, in her choices that she was making. She was sending a lot of information to the rest of the family. There's no wrongness in that information. See, there is just gratitude for the experiences, gratitude for the choices, gratitude for being able to enjoy this ride or this dance or party across the stage of life together. When you honor the choice that someone has in their dying, the same way that you can honor when a baby is born to the world with the same, wow, then you know that you're actually honoring that being. Yes, you will feel sadness because you miss the physical touch, the knowing that you could reach up to someone and give them a hug. But I have seen more of my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and I expect I will also see more of my aunt now than I was able to in a physical body beforehand. What if we could receive the gift that every being is, regardless of whether they are embodied or not, regardless of whether they are fulfilling our expectations or not? What if this is the fullness of the experience of life, the meltingness, if we're willing to be with it and not kind of sway side to side, right and wrong, good and bad, but just be there with it and go, wow. Doesn't mean you don't perceive the pain or intensity or the intensity of gratitude or anything else. It just means you can see it. You can embrace it. You can be around it. You can be in it. You can be with it. And you can allow your space to expand in such a way that everything else begins to expand. Your blip is no longer like a sharp blip, but is more of this oozing, melty, expanded space. So I love this text that I had pasted above. I love that we get to walk in this amazing, phenomenal, miraculous, magical world together. I love that we are not just who we appear to be in this lifetime. One of my favorite tools in Access is everything is the opposite of what it appears to be, and nothing is the opposite of what it appears to be. There is more to us than meets the eye. There is an energy, a formless energy, an ever-shifting, ever-moving, ever-transmuting energy, and a space and an ever-present consciousness to us, and that is the truth of us. Anybody who knows me knows that ever since Sharona, my friend, told me that, do you know what energy, space, and consciousness is in Hebrew? I said, no. She said, energia, merchav, toda'ah, emet, truth. The truth of us is energy, space, consciousness. It's not just being in a physical body. It's coming together with a physical body to create an experience in a particular lifetime, particular way of being and living in this moment, this experience, this chapter in the book, with this dance across the stage. But it is not the end all and be all of the person who passed or of you. There is so much more than meets the eye. There is so much more than we have ever spoken about. And if we would be willing to flip on the light of awareness and begin to embrace and honor the magic, the miracles. I mean, and I say magic because it is so wonder-filled. To me, magic is just wonderful. So to me, it's wonder-filled. It isn't this bippity-boppity-boo. It's noticing the unfolding of miracles around you with every ask, with every breath, with everything. Every fiber of your being, if you like to call it that. So when you can honor living like that, every day is a miracle. Every day, if you are willing to be so grateful for life, for living, for yourself, for the people you really love around you, you'd be able to reach out to them, whether they're close by or far away, and say things that you wouldn't be saying when you're fighting with them. You'd be able to tell them what would really make a difference in the world. I'm grateful for you. I love you. Okay, so you didn't take out the trash. Who the fuck cares? Oh, so you slept with that person. All right. But beneath that, knowing that you chose whatever you chose, for whatever reason you chose it, that was your reason. I know it's true for me. And so I'm able to express it to someone, and it makes a difference. If we all lived every day as if it were our last on the planet, if we would honor ourselves enough to live so fully that every day truly unfolds as the greatness and the miracle that we are and that it is, what gift would that be in the world? So I wonder, I truly wonder. And I wonder how much, truly, how much we're all willing to embrace ourselves and embrace everything that may look crazy. These are definitely different times. And they too are a huge gift and a huge contribution. When we're willing to embrace everything, the warmth of a hug, the warmth of an embrace, the warmth of presence with someone or something, the willingness to include. Oh, I remember something. Let me see if I find it. Dr. Dane shared something with us yesterday. No, not yesterday. Sorry, over the weekend. And I was very touched, extremely. And it melted my world. And there was, it was an ESB class that he had shared, and I wrote something. I wrote something in response to him, to what he had shared. And so this is actually directly to Dane about the ESB class that he had shared with us in the conversations about embracing and being present. And so this is what I wrote, in case it contributes to anyone here too. There is such a potency and gift in embracing and melting. There is such a gift in laying down arms and not looking at others or ourselves as an enemy, as an aberration, as a wrongness, as a repulsive evil, as something that must be rejected, refused, and fought. There is such a potency and beauty in inclusion beyond words. I've been asking to melt rather than frack, which is something we do in Access, for months. That melting reminds me of what you, Dane, once spoke about last year, the convergence of consciousness and unconsciousness and anti-consciousness. And that melting includes, softens, and transmutes everything it touches. What are the infinite, melty, magical, miraculous possibilities? Let's not do that, thank you. And in the conversation yesterday, Dane said something that I loved as kind of like a card game playing thing. He said, I see your judgment, or I see your sadness, or I see your misery, or I see whatever. And rather than resenting it, or rather than, being angry and fighting it in any way, shape, or form, I raise you allowance. And so I signed off that particular note to Dane with, I raise you allowance, 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 and awareness. And allowance is recognizing that everything is included and nothing is judged, and everything is just a point of view. And an interesting one at that. It's an interesting point of view. If we're willing to have and be allowance for ourselves, for everything around us, for our choices and other people's choices, this world would be so much more filled with joy. So I leave you with that, and I'm grateful. I don't think I'm going to do the reading today. Sorry. Um, I'm just not in a space for that. So I'm really grateful for being alive. I'm really grateful for these tools. I'm really grateful for you guys here. And let me know if you have any questions or if this contributed to you in any way, shape, or form. It certainly has for me, even just being able to speak it out loud. Thank you.